Hey, it's a huge honor to be podcasting today. John Shaw, who's the founder and current general manager of Maxil Inc. Obviously, Maxil comes from maxilla, like oral and maxillofacial surgery. John grew up as a kid around farming, dairy, retailing, packaged ice cream operations that his senior family members owned at the time. He credits the environment of being around and selling packaged consumer goods like ice cream and dairy products via the family's own retailer network, Sean's Dairy Store, since birth, as a natural path to an interest in packaged consumer goods, design, market pricing, satisfaction, supply chain. People always need food, and we sold food. John completed his high school in 1981 with a grade 12 and subsequent classes and programs at Hard Knocks University, from which he has not yet received his know-it-all diploma, despite it being almost 40 years later. John's employment history is newspaper boy, truck driver, toothbrush salesperson, and then being his own guy. Being a newspaper boy taught the importance of customer service, cash flow, collections, and being on time with no excuses. No matter the weather, the newspaper had better be there on time. John, the Spartan newspaper baron, upsold his customers with greeting cards, newspaper subscriptions. John, in time, was able to create a newspaper monopoly in the village of 500 by delivering the morning Free Press and Afternoon Times Journal. John's first sales position, post-family employment as a truck driver for the dairy business, was a 1099 salesperson for the MC Schiffer Company of Germany, selling toothbrushes, mainly private label toothbrushes for several retail chains in the early 80s. A sales and experience gain hold. The current day Maxil Inc. was established in 87, that's the year I graduated from dental school, on just two items, the 330 and 440 toothbrushes, which are still a big part of the product lineup today. Building and molding Maxil to where it is today exposed John to dealing with near but not yet insolvency, penny stock promoters, banks, venture capitalists, angels, private equity, legal, patents, trademarks, employment, foreign ownership, exporting, importing, manufacturing, and a list of business skills and acumen, too many to list here. John's full-time job is overseeing privately owned Maxell, which has revenue in the mid to high 8 digits, has over 150 employees, operates directly in 3 countries, and exports to dozens more. The dental industry, to which John, sort of by rear entrance accidental method, entered into, has been very good to John and seems impression-proof. Maxell experiences double-digit annual growth, and by far the best is yet to come. John, the reason I called you to be on this show, you did not call me. This isn't a commercial for some guy that makes toothbrushes trying to talk to my homies a day. When I was little, my dad, our favorite vacations were Six Flags Six Flags, that's an amusement park. Do they have those in Canada, Six Flags?
Yeah. Well, we have Canada's Wonderland north of Toronto, but that's along those lines too.
Yeah, and the Six Flags, basically, the Six Flags were the 6 sovereign state flags that flew over Texas in their time, from Mexico to Spain to the Confederate South America. And we would like to go to those amusement parks, and then he would go to a manufacturer. We watched Budweiser make beer in St. Louis, or went to Detroit and watched our family station wagon being made, and bought it off the end. And he just loved making stuff. And so I did that with my 4 boys when they were growing up. My boys have seen, I don't know, probably 50 different dental companies where stuff comes in at one end, like an ADEC, where on one end you just get a bunch of leather and plastic and metal beads, and then a football field down the road, a dental chair comes out. And I always thought that you guys kind of understand the business of dentistry better than dentists do. Dentists are so busy learning how to do root canals, fillings, and crowns that they don't really get to see the macro. And a guy like you, sitting at 30,000 feet, selling dental supplies from Hong Kong to Canada to the United States, you guys just really got the business of dentistry in your back pocket. Do you agree or disagree?
I would agree with that on the aspect of manufacturing and distributing the product. I think the dentists obviously are much more hands-on in how the products are properly applied to the dentist. No manufacturer, I think, can get inside and be the wet finger dentist and do what the dentist can do. But when it comes to the product, sure, we've got a pretty good scope on how it's made and the supply chain and the R&D behind it. So I guess our job in the industry is to get it to the doctor. I know myself, a lot of the products that we sell, I could not do what the dentist does with it. But in terms of like Maxil, and I'm sure the other companies on the supply side, we're very good at the R&D, the manufacturing, and cost effectively delivering it to the office.
So what does Maxil do? What is your revenue? I mean, McDonald's makes a hamburger, fry, and a Coke. What do you make and do?
Right. Well, just as you touched with on our history, I started out just selling product and did very well when the Deutschmark was like 15 cents. But what Maxill's morphed into was, and that actually came a lot from our early investors. I'll call it the Warm Angel round back in the early 90s. The Warm Angels were a lot of dentists. There was probably 8 of them in the London, Ontario area. And, we just sold toothbrushes and some floss at the time. So, they put in a pile of dough, and a lot, dentists are pretty smart guys. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. So they said, John, you should be selling this. You should be looking at that. You should be adding that. So the angel round of investors in Maxil lasted about 7 years. And we maybe went from about 8 products up to about 70 products in that time. To get back to your question on what Maxil really does is, we're a manufacturer that actually tried to go the dealer route, Howard, and I remember trying to get the dealers interested in carrying my product, and they didn't want to have anything to do with us, or actually me. It wasn't an us back then, it was me. So I'm not a quitter, and I know our product's good, and I know the price is good. I've got Warm Angel investors that are dentists. They were actually setting up some meetings with me. We all remember Healthco. Okay, before it exploded.
That's what I love about this show, because I'm 56. You're what, 55?
55, yeah.
And almost all of our listeners are 30 and under. So I think the reason the show's a big smash hit is because they're in dental school. They just come out of, so they're all 30 and under. A quarter of them are in dental school. The rest are 30 and under. Leave your name or age in the comments after the YouTube video, or email me, howard@dentaltime.com. But they don't know what Healthco is. Shit, they're 30 years old. Tell them what Healthco was.
Well, I'll tell you, Healthco was the biggest in Canada, and I would equate them to, I'm not going to promote my competitor's shine, but they were the biggest in Canada. Healthco dominated. Healthco was successful. Healthco was everywhere. And you can help me with this, Howard, because I was trying to get into these avenues, and then one day they were gone. So maybe you can help me with health. I just know Healthco's headquarters is in Montreal, and I believe that's where Patterson, because when Healthco went down, that's when Patterson exploded. And I don't think that Patterson was in Canada before Healthco. Can you help me on what happened to Healthco? I just knew they were around.
They were based out of Texas, and when I got out in '87, their Phoenix branch is what did my dental office. I did a lease to own, because my dad was hard school, where he believed if he gave you money, you'd do drugs and chase women. So I was a self-made man. I had $87,000 student loans. So how I got into a dental office with no money down is I found my demographics with a Caldwell banker, Dave Cheatham, and I picked Ahwatukee because it had the lowest ratio of dentists per people. It only had a dentist for every 6,000. And I went into the landlord, and he wanted a lease, $15 a square foot for a 3-year lease. And I said, no, I'll go $20 a square foot for a 5-year lease, and that extra money, you do my build out. And then I went to Healthco and ordered all my equipment, and I think it was about $100,000. They said, okay, we need $100,000. I said, well, congratulations, I don't have a dime. So I went a 5-year lease to own. So Healthco gave me all that stuff. So I got into a dental office with no money down in 1987. And then I did that about 4 other times in Phoenix and sold it to other dentists. I used to call it a turnkey operation. But Healthco went under right when Pete Frechette was at Patterson, and Pete Frechette initiated a roll-up where he went and got a big line of money, and then he started buying up all these like Healthco floundering, and he started doing a roll-up. Next thing you know, Shine started doing it, and then next thing you know, Patterson had a quarter of the dental supply business, and Shine had a quarter of the dental supply business. But you and I are so damn old that we still dealt with Healthco. So how many diabetes medications are you on?
Me? None.
I'm just kidding.
But did Healthco actually file? I think they did actually go bankrupt here.
I thought they went bankrupt, and Pete Frechette rolled them up into Patterson. That's how I remember.
Oh, okay. a lot of people, especially in the United States, because I spend half my time in Ohio, they don't realize that Target came up here. And this is getting off of dentistry, but Target actually filed for liquidation in Canada.
Yeah.
And they burned a lot of people for a lot. But anyhow, let's go back
Target
to it.
expanded into Canada thinking this is just going to be like another California. You're the same size. Canada and California both have the same number of people, same number of dentists, same GDP. And they thought they were just going to roll in there and it'd just be Canada laying sideways up to the north. And it did not work out. And they put up 100 stores and closed them all down. But kudos to them for knowing that an asset is dying and destroying capital, and to make a bold decision. In fact, Warren Buffett always says that buying a stock is a less disciplined behavior than knowing when to sell a stock. He thinks knowing when to sell a stock takes more intelligence than when to buy a stock. But anyway, so all these lessons I want to come back to, because you've seen the corporate change too that these guys today, they see Aspen and Harley. But we'll get back to that.
I'll go back to your question on what is it that Maxwell does. So when we were starting out in our early years, again, the dentists, they're just investors, and it wasn't a lot. I think what was there, 7 or 8 of them? Some of them put in 50 grand, a couple of them put in 120 grand. So we maybe raised up about 600 grand at the time, and being on the dentist side of the business, they're saying, hey, you should be doing business with Ash Temple, you should be doing business with Health Co. And some of the others. So I tried my very best to do business with these guys. They just didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I remember very vividly, I did get an opportunity with a company called Ash Temple. And again, a lot of your younger viewers, well, who's Ash Temple? They might remember that was a precursor. Shine really got established in Canada by buying Ash Temple. But nonetheless, I remember they're located in the Don Mills area, Toronto. I personally went down and they gave me the opportunity to go and sell with a salesperson. So I remember I spent 2 days with an Ash Temple rep. I sold about 9 orders. Okay, I was selling toothbrushes for 32 cents a piece then. I think I was selling them to Ash Temple for 24 cents so that Ash Temple made their money. The sales guy did nothing. I did all the selling. I did all the pitching. I did all the explaining. And after my 2 days in the big smoke, which we call Toronto, it's John Shaw's time to go back to Little St. Thomas. And I remember being in my warehouse, Howard, and I'm taping up these boxes. And I'm appreciative of the business. I'm appreciative that Ash Temple gave me the opportunity. But it was right then and there, as I'm taping these boxes, and the tape started going slower and slower, as I started thinking more and more about, I did this, they did nothing. What's wrong with this picture? And it was from that day forward, I didn't even bother to go the dealer route anymore. And I even hear stories today about the dealers treat manufacturers. I started on a direct business model. The dentists who were the investors at the time, some of them said, it's suicide, you're not going to last. They didn't pull their money. They just said, you know what, when my time, it's a 3-year term on my investment, it comes up, I think I'll be gone. Most of the dentists said, hey, if you think that works, go for it. They really didn't care because I'm the guy in the trenches. So ever since that time, we've had, and we did all the shows, we have been directly engaged with the dentist. Now, we got rid of the dentist, or they cashed out, I think it was 6 or 7 years later. But Maxwell, ever since that time, and with experience in injection molding, and my brother's the head chemist at the company, he came and joined me in 1998. We really took off because we are direct. We don't go through dealers. We've never gone through dealers. And the business has just exploded. So you want to boil Maxwell down right now, we're R&D. If you take a look at our products, we've designed a lot of them. We make most of our own products ourselves. In fact, they fill disinfectants about 100 feet from where you and I are talking today. And we deliver that right to the dental offices in a very slimmed down supply chain. Our prices are very good, and our biggest problem right now is containing growth, and we're very excited about the future. So that's where Maxwell, and that's how it essentially got started, by trying to go the dealer route. Wasn't going to work. So rather than build a dealer rapport and then abandon it, we just started on the direct. So that's where Maxwell is today.
Okay, so you have 150 employees?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of revenue? You said 8 digits. What does that mean?
That would be between 50 and 80 million.
1580 million. I'm always getting
Yeah.
dentists and hygienists emailing me saying I got an invention for a dental product. Can they call you? Do you listen to them? They're
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We get a lot of people who approach us all the time. Some of the items are good. Some of the items are crazy. You know, we'll be very honest with them. This is a good idea, or geez, I
but
don't
they're
think.
always afraid that you're gonna see their idea and then never call them back and make it yourself and sell it.
No, there's an easy way around that, Howard. As have them go to an attorney. Okay, have them do up a non-disclosure agreement. We get them all the time. In fact, I won't even open an envelope unless I have a non-disclosure. And you know as well as I do, if you ever try to rip off anybody today, you're going to get sued, and nobody needs that. And I don't need the problem. But anybody that has a good idea, that genuinely believes it has good commercial ability, first of all, look into a patent. Okay, I always encourage that. But absolutely have a non-disclosure agreement that you provide to Maxill or anybody else. Have them sign off on it to protect yourself. And I'll put myself in the shoes of some of your listeners that do have a good idea. If a company genuinely rips them off, and they can track it through mail, make sure when they mail something they do the tracking number on it, make sure they keep all their emails. No one likes patent litigation. I've been involved in a couple of them. I've won them. Just because I've simply done nothing wrong. I've never ripped off anybody's idea. Any listeners of yours that have got a good idea, they shouldn't be afraid of having it get ripped off, because they can cover their tracks based on the advice I just given them, and they'll be fine.
Okay, now if you were on Shark Tank, and my favorite shark is the bald beauty from Canada, Mr. Wonderful. Would Mr. Wonderful want that dentist or hygienist to patent it and prototype it before they got a non-disclosure and showed it to you? Or if it's just a rough idea, can they go to you with a non-disclosure even though they don't have a patent or a prototype?
Well, actually, that's a very good question. Usually all this is coming from hygienists, like you say, dentists that are actually doing it. The advent today of 3D printing gives them the ability to probably try it. And, 3D printing now is so cheap, Howard, they can actually build the product, try it in their office. Like, somebody approached me about a backflow valve that was back in the summer, and we're still talking to them. There's a few of them on the market, so I'm not telling you anything that's a big secret. But they actually 3D printed it. It failed, so they've made some modifications, and I expect probably next month they're going to be successful in finally developing that product, and I hope to do a deal with them. That's another topic of conversation about how big various products are in the market, but that's a good example that they actually try it in the office. So I definitely recommend them do 3D printing and try it out.
I want to go back to your business, the business model, because dentists. I can't believe I'm still always pitched multi-level marketing deals from dentists. Because I have a big footprint, I got a lot of followers, so I think they'll hit the money wagon. But the reason multi-level marketing doesn't work is because you have the product, the final customer. Well, if you design 5 middlemen in the middle that are all taking a cut, there's no way you can structurally deliver a good that's faster, easier, higher quality, lower in price, and more small. And in dentistry, most people, a quarter buy from Patterson in America, a quarter buy from Shine, a quarter buy from Benco, and then a quarter buys from everybody else. What is their average markup? I mean, don't the average dealers mark things up 40%? I mean, how can a dentist get the lowest bill buying indirect? Isn't it structurally impossible? And why does like Sirona and Ivoclar and 3M not sell direct or on Amazon? And what is your view of the macroeconomics? Because we're in a changing world. I mean, with Amazon.
Absolutely.
So I threw 20 questions at you. Hopefully, one of those is good enough to make you rant a little bit.
No, I'll talk to you. I love talking about this, and keep them coming to me. Here's the whole thing that's going on, because when I did my first Ontario Dental Association show back in I think it was 88 was my first show. A lot of the guys I met at that show, believe it or not, from other competitors that are still around today, I still know today. And I met them, God, what is that? That was 30, 40 years ago. They're trapped. And a lot of the manufacturers have established themselves with dealers, and I'm not saying that that's a bad business model, but here's a big problem with it. Let's say you're doing, let's pick a number, $25 million a year, and you're selling to Shine, Patterson, Benco, and all the other guys, and you're out there. That's a good number. A lot of these guys are making pretty good money. So for them to even think about going direct, if they ever start down that path, they're going to burn all their bridges behind them. And trust me when I tell you, a few of those guys have come to me and they said, you know what, John, I've known you a long time. That's a smart business model you got. You really hit it. I can't do it. It'd blow the company up. It would trash our relationships. But man, I wish we would have started about that in the beginning. Okay, so that's one. That answers just one of your questions. Here's another thing: is you got to be very careful about which product and company models you take direct to market, because if you don't have the breadth, and maybe I'm making a mistake in telling you all this because everybody's going, hey, that's a pretty good idea. If you don't have the product breadth, you're going to starve. Now, when I started, what did I have? I had like 8 or 12 products that I was able to take to market. Most of them were toothbrushes and floss. The next big product that we took direct to market, and you'll remember this, and a lot of your listeners are going to go say, what's he talking about? Remember when vinyl gloves first started coming out because of allergies and stuff?
Right.
I remember when latex was 100% of the market. You remember that? And then vinyl started coming on. That took off like wildfire around here in like 1991, 93. Vinyl gloves took right off. So vinyl gloves were our next thing. Because that's, nitrile, I think, even it didn't come around until like 1996. It was $30 a box. But anybody that wants to do our business model, you got to make sure you got to have the product breadth. And I don't know how many millions of dollars we spent over the years trying to get even just a fraction of what we got now. So you got the problem of burning established relationships, burning existing supply channels. Do I have enough to go direct? Okay, so here's another thing. Maxill's a big orchestra, and it's broken into a lot of different things. We have people that work just on R&D. We have people that work just on manufacturing. We have people working just on procurement. We have people working just on purchasing. One of the biggest elements of Maxill is our sales organization. Okay, we've got over 60 salespeople in Canada. We've got, let me just see now, we added some. We got 17 salespeople in the Ohio and Western PA, which is where we're spanning out. So our sales organization is an entity onto its own, and it's probably the most important part of our organization. So when you put all these big things together, it's a lot. And trust me, it's a lot to run a direct to dental business model because you're handling it all. I guess we're doing very well at it because we started at it right from the grassroots. And as you know, the old saying goes, it's easier to bend the tree when it's young. We just don't know life any different. We never had any dental dealer relationship. So we just grow into it, and this is our world, this is our space. We got people that run the various aspects of the business. So it's just life normal to us. Could anybody else do it? It would be tough. I know a lot of people want to try it, but is anybody going to do it? I don't know. I just do not know.
So since you don't have that 40% markup by going through a middleman, a dealer, do you think you're getting your products to the dentist and hygienist lower price than if they went through a middleman?
That's right. You asked me a question I forgot. Okay, I apologize. I think I looked at Shine's last quarterly report. I think Shine's working on like a 53% gross. I can't imagine Patterson, who tends to be higher priced in the market. I think they're probably working on even a higher grade. And you just pull up any of their public reports, and I think their gross margin is very, very healthy. I know Maxill's gross margin, I can tell you, is north of 50%. But again, we're a manufacturer, and being the manufacturer and being flatlined, we're able to easily, like our everyday low pricing is like 15% less than our competitors' everyday low pricing. And then we deal from there. Like we're hyper aggressive in the marketplace. No one will beat us on comparable products, and that comes from controlling it from A to Z.
Now,
but
your
gross
website,
margin, we're north of 50. well north of 50. Patterson and Shine, again, you check the reports, I think they're well north of 50. And I think most dealers, except maybe the smaller dealers that don't have the volume, maybe they're 45 or 50, and they also got a discount, but they're discounting on exactly the same stuff that Shine, Patterson, and Pearson and all those guys are selling. So that's why I know some of the smaller dealers have a harder time.
So what are comparative dental companies that sell direct that don't go through because the way I see the market, I think about 75% of all the supplies are moving through middleman dealers and 25% going direct. I think of Maxil, Ultradent. Can you name others that sell direct?
Ooh, I remember Sunstar used to sell direct. My tea leaves are telling me from the bushes that Sunstar now is going through a lot of dealers. Colgate used to be direct on a lot of stuff. I know that I think they might have an exclusive at Shine now. See, some people have abandoned it, but again, they had very limited scope in the market. Ultradent, yes, and
what about Denmat?
It's few, Howard. It's few. Like I know there's some glove companies, but again, they're gloves only. They're selling direct, but when it comes to like the main freight and ever expanding, like I like to think Maxill's a universe, we got a solid product pipe happening all the time. Again, there's people dedicated to the company, new product every quarter, new product every quarter. I don't think we have anybody right along our business line. Ultradent's a fantastic company, and I know their margins because I just know are just astronomical. They're a phenomenal organization, but I don't see them expanding a lot. But so they specialize. They're very good at what they do. But Maxill's just expanding it out, and I can't think of anybody that's a direct overlay of us.
Are you friends with Dan Fisher of Ultradent?
No, I'm not.
Oh, he's just an amazing man.
How I know Ultradent is I believe they ended up, there was a doctor in Toronto who came up with this clear matrix band back in the early 90s. And he took it all over Bay Street trying to get financed. And he actually did get financed by a guy at Lawrence and Company. And Jack Lawrence financed this doctor. And a bunch of stuff happened. A bunch of stuff happened. It didn't quite make it. Actually, it was a penny stock for a while here in Canada. And I believe Ultradent ended up with that. Now, is that product still on the market? It was quite a thing at the time, but that's how I know about Ultradent. And obviously, they're a pretty good player in this business, so I touch on their website every so often. But no, I don't know anybody of the brass there.
Huh. So your line is infection control, gloves, protection, X-ray, procedural, ultrasonic scalers, instruments, disposables, oral care, toothbrushes, IPANA, practice. You have a lot of stuff. What is your the 80-20? They usually say 20% of your products are 80% of your volume. Do you find that true?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Maxill's well known for infection control. We got a great line of products that we make entirely ourselves in infection control. Very price competitive, big line of gloves, which is the number one disposable spend, as you know, in a dental office. And our line of disposables is massive end-to-end and oral care. So I guess if you really want to boil it out, the 80-20 rule is infection control, oral care, gloves and disposables, and we sell a lot of the other stuff, but those are the heart of the company for sure.
So is gloves the major bill in supplies?
From what I understand, gloves are the number one spend in a throwaway disposable in an office. That's their number one thing. Infection control, it would probably be number two. But then where do you saw off infection control? You're going to saw it off at wipes. You're going to saw it off at the sanitizer. You're going to saw it off in the sterilization. If you roll all your sterilization in, it might be close. But gloves are definitely the big ticket in the dental office for sure.
So, what do you think? You hear everything where dental supplies should be between 4% and 6%. What do you think dental supplies should be for a dental office? And how do you think if one of my homies listening right now and says, I got a bunch of PPOs, I have a high volume, low margin practice, I'm on all these insurance plans, how could I lower my supply bill? What would you tell them? Because they hear things like maybe I should join a buyer's group, or you hear a lot of speakers put together a buyer's group. Is that what would you recommend if somebody listening wants to lower their supplies?
What I'm going to tell you is actually kind of comical because it comes into sales, and this is going to exactly relate over to a dentist. As we're training salespeople, and a lot of them come from the dental industry, always ask for the order. So when they pitch an office, don't forget to ask for the order. What amazes me, and doctors, try this, and it's guaranteed to work. Just remember, you heard it from John Shaw first. Ask for the discounts. I know that there's a lot of relationships out there where the doctors are the buddies, they golf, they may travel, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maxwell goes up against established relationships all the time. And, we do have some barriers, that's one, but we sell against it very effective and very easily. My advice, Howard, to your listeners is ask for the discount. Just because you're buddy with Sally Ann or John, the sales rep, you gotta ask, you gotta compare. Because how Maxil is entering the U.S. market very effectively is people say, we've been dealing with Sally Ann or John forever. We don't need a new supplier. You don't think we hear that every day? This is how we solve that, and it's very effective, and it works. And it actually works more for the dental office than it does Maxil. You say, listen, we understand that you have a relationship with Sally Ann and John. This is Maxil. You never heard of Hyundai cars before. You never heard of Samsung. Okay, you never heard of Toshiba before, but now you do. That's the same with Maxil. We're very well known in Canada. We're getting to be very well known in Indiana, Ohio, and PA, and we're going to spiral out. But this is what the doctors are going to do is, with that relationship, just give us a little bit of business. But very important for you is to leave our product in the hall. Because the next time Sally Ann and John are in for one of the big dealers, are going to go, oh, what are these guys doing here? Hey, did you see this catalog? Take a look. And we encourage dentists to show our catalog to their relationship guy and say, listen, I've known you for many years. You're a beautiful person. You're great. You know how competitive it is out there. I need some savings. You got to come and match. And I'll guarantee you, Howard, just as sure as I'm sitting here, they're going to drop dollars for that doctor right then and there. But the doctor's got to ask for it, and they'll get it. And there's no shame in asking for it. A guy, Lenny, one of the warm angels, okay, he's from Exeter, okay, and Lenny's retired now. I remember at one of the investor meetings, he was brought into Maxil from another doctor, and Lenny told me, he goes, you know what, he says, I view savings, because he would always be asking for the savings, and he was in very early in Maxil, didn't have much product, but he goes, I appreciate the savings, because he says, I view savings like free procedures, What do you mean by free procedures? And he says, John, if I overspend $200 to $300 a day or whatever it is, doesn't matter, $50 a day, if I overpay for basically the same product from one company versus another, it's like doing a cleaning a day. Or his analogy was 300, so it was like doing over 3 free cleanings a day of which he got no money, because cleanings, I think at the time, were $80. So $300 overspend, that's almost 4 cleanings that he did for free. And all he has to do was ask for the discount. Get your dentist to ask for the discount. Get a hold of a Maxil catalog, or anybody. You don't even need Maxil for it. We're the pioneer on it. Ask for the discount. You'll get the discount because this is a hyper-competitive business. I know it's a hyper-competitive business. I entered it through the back door, and your doctors will get the savings. And I'm not talking a little savings, Howard. I'm talking a lot of these guys can save 10, 20, 25 grand, depending on how big of their factory they're running. And this is money that goes right to their bottom line. It can go to the health of the practice. It can go to staff bonuses. They can do a lot of money with a minimum of 10, more like 20 or 25 grand. Would you not agree with that practice? It's bomb-proof because it works.
Well, it's so tough because, we're trying to coach dentists. We're trying to make them, happier, easier, all that. And it seems like you're hardwired as a species to get along with your tribe. And then if you got a really good salesman and you got a really extrovert staff and they're good looking and they're bringing in donuts and they're saying, oh my God, did you watch the playoffs yesterday? Can you believe the Chicago Cubs missed that field goal? And then you're not discussing the price. So now you got all this dopamine about this friendly relationship, and you don't realize that the closer they get to you, the higher they're going to see the price. You see it all over. Like if you have a really good, serious, say a guy that does your yard, and he does it every Monday.
Yep.
And then there's a customer that only gets their yard done every 2 or 3 months, and he needs your time on Monday, and he was like, "Oh, well, I've been doing Howard's yard for 10 years, so I can screw Howard and go do this other yard." So the more friendly they are with you, the margin goes higher and higher and higher. And what I've noticed, and I don't know if you notice this, but it's the it's the introvert dentist, hygienist assistant that's not doing all the friendly, fuzzy stuff and looking at the catalog and looking at the prices. And you'll see them every month. It'll be like 4% supplies, maybe 4.5%, a high will be 5%, but it's very steady in the 4s, low 5s. And then you get the extrovert, emotional, touchy feeling, and you can see their supplies go from 4% to 8% in alternating months. Like, dude, your supply cost is varying 100%. And all you tell me is that you love your rep and you go golfing with him and he was your godchild. And I'm like, okay, but you're buying that relationship. There was a lawsuit a while back, and it's hard to get any information, but there was I'm here in Arizona, and
price fixing.
What's that? And there was a company that
price fixing.
Yeah. Well, talk about that, because what was your understanding of all that?
Well, I know some of the CEOs at one of the big three that was involved in that, and nice guy. I get together and have coffee with him. Not going to talk about it. Basically, what that was, and I even find it hard to believe, Howard, because competition in this business is so tough. I can't even picture myself. I don't care if I'm running a $1 billion or a $2 billion company. I really can't picture myself as the head of a company having a lakeside meeting or a top of a 50-story building meeting with my competition to establish pricing. First of all, I wouldn't trust them. Second of all, if it ever got out, it would destroy the faith that any customers would have in you. You don't know if this is being recorded and is going to be put on social media or put out there. It is a crime. I'm shocked that it even got there. And again, you and I are both having a hard time in finding to think about it, because I know they settled. I said, what was going on? It's settled, done. It's over. It's done. They shut it down. There's no way there was ever going to be a trial on that. There's no way that was ever going to see the light of day. But I find it hard to believe that even happened, because I just wouldn't trust anybody, and I wouldn't expect anybody to trust me. Obviously, there was some genesis of it for it to get there. You just don't make stuff.
Didn't they settle for like $80 million?
It was a lot. Yeah. So
you wouldn't pay someone $80 million if you were zippity doo dah zippity day. I mean, it's like when these people have these settlements with people, and it's like, oh, $10 million, but we agreed there was no law broken. It's like, well, then why did you give me $10 million?
Well, if I was served today by somebody just coming into reception right now with a price collusion lawsuit, and we're demanding $100 million, really? Game on. I know I'm innocent. Let's go. Okay? Yeah. There's no settlement on Shaw or Max Hill. But going back to the established relationships, is you can ask for those discounts. Don't forget, these are billion-dollar companies. These are very large companies that at the end of the day, they don't want margin down, but it's a very price-competitive business, and they will give it. Now, any doctor out there that says, I don't know, I'm kind of happy with my rep. Here's another thing that I'll share with you, and you already know this, and probably a lot of your listeners do as well, is dental corporations coming in. We deal with a lot of them in Canada. We're getting a lot of interest in the United States. Why is that? Because it's price. So any standalone office out there, or one or two doors as we call it, if they're not being price aggressive on their supplies and keeping their supply costs down, as this corporate dentistry gets going more and more, it's going to be like the Walmarts. And trust me, listeners, and Howard, when I tell you, if you're not interested in your supply costs, that's all these guys are interested in, because they're about driving every nickel of cost out of the business as they possibly can, okay? And they're buying their supplies probably from the same guys that you are and Max Hill, and those guys are giving them the pricing. And why are they giving them the pricing? Because they're demanding the pricing. So maybe some dentists are going to say, well, they're a big corporation. They're not going to give me that. No, they're probably not going to give you that, but they're going to give you something. And like I mentioned earlier, 10, 20 grand in savings back, that's entirely realistic if you ask for it. The doctor that's very busy, and it's a very stressful occupation, as you know, he may be uncomfortable, maybe he just doesn't have the time. But I know a lot of practicing doctors, they make it a part of their daily thing is to keep those costs in line, or they've got a girl or a guy that they sit there and they pay, 15, 14, 16 bucks an hour. And their job is to save money. And I know around the St. Thomas, London area is, and also down around Youngstown and Warren, Ohio, a few of the doctors have gone in together to pay for this girl. So there's definitely the savings if you ask and get a hold of a competitor's catalog, get a hold of a Maxil catalog, say, just meet. And again, 10, 20 grand right on their bottom line.
Okay, you keep saying catalog. So what percent of your sales comes from a dental office, a hygienist who has a physical catalog versus they're doing it all online at Maxill.com, Maxill.com for Maxilla or oral and maxillofacial surgery?
We get probably 10%, but it's growing, 10% of what we call trip over traffic. So it's just people out there price shopping and they land on Maxill.com. We rank very high on Google. So I'd say it's about 10% of our online sales is from trip over traffic. The big bulk of it is once we have that discussion at shows or in office, because we pay a salesperson commission on an account, whether or not the office buys it online. Believe it or not, Saturday is one of the biggest times for our website to be clicking the orders off because people got time to do it. So I would say 80, 90% is from people once they hear Maxill, have met a salesperson, buy into the religion. And then the online is just a big thing of convenience. So, they go in, they reorder what they've ordered, and it's very convenient for them, and it shows up the next day.
And who are you fulfilling it through? Is it UPS, U.S. Post Office?
So it's UPS or FedEx Ground or USPS. I'd say most of our packages go by FedEx and UPS in the United States. Here in Canada, we got so many more competition. Believe it or not, Canada, with 10% of the population and twice the land mass, our courier prices are about a third of the United States. It's incredible how UPS and FedEx have just done the monopoly on that.
Is Canada really twice the land mass of the United States, Alaska and Hawaii?
Maybe not twice, but okay, maybe what, 1.2 or 3%?
And the neatest
120%.
The neatest thing I love about Canada is it's really like 5 or 6 different countries under one deal. I mean, you can't compare French Quebec to Toronto, and you can't compare Toronto to Vancouver, and you can't compare any of that to the fishing towns up in Nova Scotia. I mean, it really is a lot of different amazing countries just flying under one flag. I want to go back to the online. Do you think Patterson, Shine, and Benco, what's going to be the Amazon threat? Because some of these big companies, like a big company could just say, okay, we're going to put everything on Amazon tomorrow. I mean, do you think Amazon's a threat or not really?
I was at the Greater New York Dental meeting. It was in November of 2017, and I believe it was just before that, excuse me, that Amazon announced in dental. And didn't all the guys' stock take a big hit?
Right.
And
right.
Amazon had, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It did. It was whenever Amazon looks at a company, that company's sector in Wall Street will drop 5, 8, 10% just because of the fear.
Yep.
But Amazon had a booth at the Greater New York, which is after Thanksgiving, 2 years in a row. I think 3 years in a row. So they're obviously looking at dental. What do you think they're seeing, and what do you think they're going to do?
I don't know how they're doing. We have not had anybody shop us against Amazon. So, we have a price line here thing at Maxill. So if a sales rep or a customer needs a temporary price match or whatever, they call in the price line, they get an answer like that. We don't hear of Amazon. And let's be clear about what Amazon's all about. Amazon is very, very efficient It's supply chain. They have relationships with the post office, FedEx, and UPS like nobody other. I can't think of one person in the world or organization in the world that has lower shipping costs, can receive product, stock product, fulfill product, and get it out the door probably better than Amazon. Why haven't we heard more about them in dentistry? Because supply chain and logistics is a slice of this overall thing. And part of that overall thing is relationships. Part of that overall thing is education. A big part of it is new innovation. Amazon can't get their hands on every product, so I know that a lot of manufacturers won't put stuff on Amazon. But we're sitting here January 14th, 2019. We don't know what the future is. I do know the future is going to be much more to a more efficient supply chain, definitely. Is it going to be Amazon? There was rumors, and I know you heard about it, that they were going to be buying Patterson. What happened with that? I don't know. Would you hear about that?
So, your dentistry, it's so funny. In the 31 years I've been out there, it's got more rumors than any high school lunchroom. I mean, there's just so many rumors. I just think it's amusing. Another thing these young kids don't. The advantage of me being 55 and you listening at age 25 is the fact that we're smart because we've seen these rodeos before. Like they see. They see these Aspen Dental and Heartland Dental, and they think it's going to take it over. They don't realize that guys as old as you and me, we saw this whole chain start a long time ago. You're up in Canada, they had Triodont. Down here, they had Orthodontic Centers of America, and they all went bust. And now today, you see all these big capitalizations, but you notice that they can't do an IPO on NASDAQ. I mean, Snapchat can. Like, that's a serious thing that society needs. I mean, Snapchat is ridiculous. I watched one of my cousins on it the other day, Sunday, watching the football playoffs with my mom and four of my sisters, and it's like, how could ridiculous Snapchat go public, but not all these DSOs? So first of all, my succinct question is, what happened to Trident? Were they going to take over all of dentistry in Canada, and where are they today?
Well, you remember Trident and Dr. Howard Rocket. I'm shocked. Your knowledge depth is pretty deep. Yes. He got his start in Woolco stores and towers. They're gone now, but he started setting up those things. He took off like wildfire, and I think they just overextended themselves because opening a dental office, like all of your listeners know, opening a dental office, putting the equipment in, that's one thing. Staffing it's another. Customer service and quality of work is two more. So there's multifacets to this. And wasn't there, just trying to think in New York, Dental World Systems, there was a doctor in Oakville, and I remember when Trident, I think they came in just after Trident started down. I don't know much about them, but there was another chain, but they never really got a foothold here. And then actually there was one in London called Dynasty Dental, and I think they got up to about 16, and then they folded. What's the story on that Dental World? I really don't know that much about them.
Well, the reason I never did it is because, it's good to have good demographics. It's great to have a good location. It's great to have good marketing. It's most important to build a team, and that starts with the dentist, because the whole dental industry doesn't start until I'm a dentist and I tell you, you have a cavity, and you believe me, and you let me touch you and perform surgery on you in a dental operatory, and I never saw anything scalable about that. And what I've seen in the last 30 years, that all the dentists who have enough skill sets to pull it off, maybe it's between them and their spouse. Maybe the spouse is going to do the business and they're going to do the dentistry, or they get a good Batman and Robin, Mickey and Mallory relationship, and they build a good team. But that dentist is really hits off well in communication, treatment plan presentation. Those guys won't be your employee, and they're not going to be your associate. So it's kind of like these big businesses were all for the leftover dentists who didn't really have what it took, or the drive or ambition or whatever. And then you compound that with the employee turnover rate, where dentists in private practice or in DSOs, they can't keep a dentist for more than a year or two. So when I'm lecturing, the dentist that owns a practice is sitting in the front row taking notes, Well, his associates over there on Snapchat. And so
Yeah.
I just don't see how this works. I know there's a lot of money behind it, and I know a lot of people are making a lot of money, but they seem to be I don't know. I mean, why did Orthodontic Centers of America fail? I'm still trying to get the founder of that on to come on the show. I don't know. If you're listening, come tell us what you learned from that. I mean, he was the only
I
one
think
that
back.
made it on the New York Stock Exchange, the only one ever of all time. It was just Orthodontic Centers of America.
Well, back when I had to replace the Warm Angels, I actually had to go down to Bay Street. Maxwell was actually a public company through the 90s. So I actually had to go down and present myself and go around. I was always trying to fundraise. And, I could spend 5 hours talking about that. Talking about dentistry in the public markets, there was a very famous Bay Street firm, and it's etched in my mind. It's called Gordon Capital. And I met a guy at BMO Capital earlier that morning. I can't remember his name, but it was right across the street in First Canadian Place. He said he's not going to do a deal with me just because it didn't fit his parameters, but he was going to set me up with a guy over at Gordon Capital over in the TD Center. And so he gave me a phone number. That's he just wrote it out on a piece of paper. And Gordon Capital, for the viewers that don't know it, is they did the first bought deal, I think, in North America. I think it was with a bank, CIBC, I believe. But anyhow, the bought deal in an IPO, or not an IPO, but in an issuance, they actually bought it and then sold it. And prior to that, stocks were, well, it was on a best effort basis. Back to the main heart of the thing. I remember going over to the TD Center at 5 o'clock, going up. It was a ghost town. I remember there was a huge exercise room. I go in and I sit down and they said, "Oh, are you Mr. Shaw?" "Yes." "Well, Mr. Conacher will be with you in just a second." And I got thinking for a second, because this guy's name's like in the Globe and Mail every other day. Conacher, like, is this the boss? So I went in there and here's like Jimmy Conacher, and this guy's like a billionaire. I talked to him for like a half hour. He looks at his watch and says, "Okay, you got to go." And I says, "Can I get any funding?" He goes, "You know what, John?" He says, "I really liked you." He says, and I think this applies to dentistry, Howard. This is why I'm discussing it. Maxil and dentistry are and Jimmy Conacher himself told me they're a second and third base hit all the time. I said, "Well, that's awesome." And he goes, "No, we look for home runs. But if I can hit the ball and get on second and third base every time, isn't that good?" "No, Johnny, you got to understand how this game works. We look for home runs. We'll put up with 7 failures for that one home run, right? Because there's a lot of guys like you that can do 2 and 3." And that was like almost 35 years ago, but I still remember that so much.
Yeah.
Going back to
go ahead.
Yeah, just touching back on Trident, and my memory's stretching. We're going way back, and I'm very impressed that you knew about it. Those guys were opening stores and then putting people in it, and this ties into what we talked about on sundry costs, because when those guys were opening up new stores and then staffing them, the dental corps now, at least they are in Canada, and I believe they are in the States too, and you can correct me when I'm done, is they're buying out offices. And because they don't want to have to deal with payroll, they don't have to deal with taxes, they don't have to deal with accounting. So there's a lot of good things that can come from joining a larger organization. And I still think they can retain their wet finger for 2 or 3 years. They put in an associate. We all know that student debt is massive with dentists today. So a lot of these big dental corps, they'll put in a student to learn from them out. So they're sort of keeping that synergy as it goes along, and they're just not collapsing out. Maybe that's why they're a little bit more successful today, which is what we talked about earlier about, the doctors are afraid to ask for the saving on their sundries. Well, these guys that are being successful, and they are sticking around, and they are paying their bills, because we do a lot of business with them and they owe us a lot of money at any one time, it does look like they got some staying power. And again, they are stripping down their sundry costs, and that should be a warning to everybody else that isn't. They should get very busy at saving.
Yeah, they're getting good locations. They got good marketing. They got better systems of insurance, aging, overhead. They got the business of dentistry bent down. And then how they're going to stay in business is they're going to pay these associate dentists just enough money to make them kill all their dreams. And so that they get comfortable, they get a spouse, they get a kid, and then he starts telling his wife, I think I'm going to quit my $150,000 a year job and go start from scratch. And then he starts getting pushback like, no, 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 keep the job and let's buy a new SUV, next year. But no matter how big something gets, like Orthodontic Centers of America was started by a board-certified orthodontist, Gasper Lazaris. He got up to 43 states, Puerto Rico, Japan, and Mexico. They were managing 537 offices. They were on the New York Stock Exchange, and I think it went under for the same reasons that they're not going to work again. And that is, if you want a company with 1 million employees, you better start a war. Like get a bunch of 18-year-old soldiers or Walmart, a bunch of young, low-educated people that will take orders. But once you become a doctor of dental surgery, a lawyer, a physician, it's like herding cats. It's a very hard HR. I look at why all these associates leave their the dentists they're working for, whether it's a DSO or a private practice, and they're so complex of a Homo sapien that they just really don't like to be managed. I think it's just the condition of the human. When you're looking at the
they're entrepreneurs, yeah.
Yeah, when you're looking at when I'm looking at macroeconomics of dentistry, I see as countries get richer, they like luxury items. That's why they're all into clean air and clean water, and they want to clean up the oceans. Well, you don't do that when you're a third world poor country, or your country's trying to focus on getting rid of, some Nazi Germany or something like that. So now people are getting rich, and I see a huge increase from here to Cambodia, people wanting their teeth straighter. I see Invisalign taking off all over. I see Smiles Direct Club lowering the price of ortho from $6,500 to $2,500. I bet that's going to be a big deal. Everybody wants to keep their teeth longer. Everybody wants whiter. If you're at 55 years old, if some kid just graduated and they just graduated from dental school and she's like $300,000 to $400,000 in debt, she said to you, John, do you think I made a good decision becoming a dentist, or do you think I screwed up and shouldn't have spent 8 years and $350,000 and gone into dentistry? What would you tell that young 25-year-old woman dentist?
Depending on what you do with yourself going forward, it can be a very lucrative investment. Some of the grads end up going working for the dental corps, like the DSOs. Some of them, the smart ones, will try to find a good practice, join an entrepreneurial dentist that's got a good thing going. We call them factories. I can think of a lot of them. And they work themselves in there with a buyout agreement. Of course, you got to prove yourself that you're actually going to be good with the staff and that, you can manage it. But I don't think anybody that's really passionate about dentists should regret going through dental school. There's going to be a need for them. There's going to be jobs for them. It depends on which path they want to take in the industry. And, they got to make some smart decisions. But in terms of that investment in your degree and in your profession, I would say they made the right thing.
Well, how many dental offices are you working with? Like in 2018, how many dental offices did you have sales with?
About 13,700.
Okay, so this little girl's working in one dental office. You see the macro, 13,000 offices covering many countries for several decades. What are the key low-hanging fruit? Why are some doing better? Is it demographics? Is it buying high technology CAD cams and CVCTs? What do you think makes some of these dental offices net 3 or 4 times more money than the other ones?
I think a lot of it is the personality and the motivation of the staff. In fact, I know that's a big thing. The offices are clean, they're well bright, the staff is, I think most of the salaries are by and large pretty much the same. So it comes down to the work environment. You got to have, I know of dentists have told me themselves they got to keep drama out of the office. They'll fire people if they start drama. And investing in the technology, keeping up on the infection control, because if an office is lacking in infection control, believe it or not, that's a big demoralizer for staff. And, that's a big wheelhouse for us is infection control. If an office tries to skimp on it, they'll skimp on it because they're told to, but it's not very good for the staff. They want an office, because it is actually a healthcare facility. So it's how the office is run. If you skimp on this or you skimp on that, that does affect staff. You may not see it, but staff does talk. Why are they successful? They're doing local internet ads. They're involved in the community. They sponsor the ball team. But another thing is, what are they doing for their own websites? Websites are big now. And what are they doing for promotions? Most offices hand away a toothbrush, they hand away floss, they hand away a loot bag with some other stuff. We do a whole section on office marketing, and my advice to all your listeners, and you probably did that back when you were doing it, is whatever you're handing out, get your name printed on it, because it's going to go on the fridge, it's going to go in the car, it's going to be in the bedroom, it's going to be in the bathroom, and they're going to see Dr. Howard all the time. And, friends move to town. We're looking for a dentist. Call Dr. Howard. Call this guy. So office marketing is something that dentists really got to focus a lot. So there's a few things, all the way from how staff is treated, how the office is run, and it comes down to office marketing. And I know some office marketing, they do nice office marketing, and they buy a lot. So obviously they got a huge patient load.
It's funny because sorry to keep bringing up football, but I'm addicted to football. Even though your greatest Canadian athlete of all time lives in Phoenix, Wayne Gretzky, is he your favorite athlete of all time?
No, I used to follow hockey a lot, but I thought it was Mario Lemieux. I thought he was a better all-around player, wasn't he? But Wayne Gretzky's institution in Canada. I'm going to get shot if I say anything negative against Wayne Gretzky.
The bottom line is that when I see success, I don't know what to tell the doctor, because the playoffs were this weekend and all 4 home teams won, and now it's the Rams, the Saints, the Patriots, and the Chiefs. And what do they all have? They all there's 7.5 billion people on Earth, and there's probably only a dozen guys that could play quarterback at that level, and the coaches.
Yeah.
And it's so dentist centric. I mean, if you're that quarterback for the Rams, the Saints, the Patriots, the Chiefs, if you're that dentist, you can defy demographics. You can go to any city. You will build a team. When I walk into a dental office, within 30 seconds, you can just smell if it's $1 million practice with high margins or if it's not. I mean, you just sense it the instant you walk in there. And if you can build that fun team, I mean, and it takes a long time, because I want to remind everybody of my mistakes. I mean, my dental office is 31 years old. But if you look at all my management team, they're all 20 years old. So it was 10 years of trying this, zigging this way, and now what have we learned? We learned to hire slowly and fire quickly. I mean, you either know that quarterback could never be Drew Brees. You know he could never be Peyton Manning. You know that this quarterback isn't going to take you that level, and then you leave him on the team for 5 or 10 years. Because you don't have the coaching ability to say, look, man, we threw the ball to this guy twice and it bounced off his hands. And if he would have caught both of those passes, we would have won the game. So we are losing the game because we keep this dental assistant. We're keeping this hygienist. And a lot of times that mistake person is actually the dentist. My gosh, I can't believe we went over an hour. I could talk to you all day. So how do my homies find out if you can save them money? They go to maxil.com.
Maxil.com, our 800 number, 855 number on there.
Well, say the number. Say the number.
1-800-268-8633. And the number.
Well, you can remember. They're listening on their iPod. Remember 855-4-MAXIL. Think of oral and maxillofacial surgeon. So 855-4, the numeral 4 for getting a mnemonic for FOR, for Maxill, MAXILL. So it's 855-4-MAXIL. And or just email them, info@maxill.com. I want to ask you, can I keep you for overtime for just a minute?
No, absolutely.
Okay, oral. You make toothbrushes and floss and all that stuff. In the news yesterday, Oral-B Glide floss tied to potentially toxic PFAS chemicals. Studies suggest. Do you think? And then I tweeted that out, and Oral-B. Yes, and by the way, thanks to you to the 25,000 homies who follow me on Twitter. I tweeted that out. Oral-B Glide floss tied to potentially toxic PFAS chemicals. And Oral-B replied to my tweet, "Hi, at Howard Ferran. We have confirmed that none of the substances in the report is used in our dental floss. The safety of our consumers who use our products is our top priority. Flossing subjective to exhaustive safe tests, and we support the safety of all our products. Regards." Why did that make the USA Today if they didn't have a leg to stand on?
I don't know. I know that a lot of the slippery floss is PTFE. I haven't got into I heard about this on Friday. I didn't get into the chemistry on it about the Teflon. But you know how news organizations are. They'll just grab something. As long as they have a credible source, they'll put it out there. They don't care whether it damages anything or not. I think Oral-B has great products. Is it true or is it fact? What's Oral-B going to say? Nothing? Or are they going to say something? I think Oral-B has to say something, right?
And then my last question: you went through all those you went through all these private angels, investors, and you learned that whole rodeo. Do you think eventually all these DSOs in America, like KKR just bought up Heartland Dental, they also own WebMD, Aspen. Do you think these guys are eventually going to be a publicly traded stock, or do you see them following the first round like Orthodontic Centers in America, where they'll just get banned, big, expand, and then fall from within?
Well, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to be successful or they're not going to be successful. I know private equity companies, and we're approached by private equity companies all the time. They've got one of a few different strategies going. They want to buy you and roll you up, okay, and put you with a whole bunch of other things. And the other thing is, or they want to take you public. I don't know if a lot of people want to be taken public now, or are they going to turn them into something like a REIT? They're going to turn them into, a type of trust where once they get it to a certain size and they cap it off and then they just pay out the cash flow as dividends. Who knows what these guys are up to? But if they do run them right, they will be successful. How they manage the cash and the payout for the initial investors, I really don't know. What's your opinion on it?
Well, again, you said it best, roll up. And just in case that whooshed over some of the young millennials' heads, roll out is when you build a McDonald's prototype and then you stamp out the exact same restaurant all across the United States. Warren Buffett owns Dairy Queen. Every Dairy Queen's about the same. Versus a roll up where you just start buying up all these dental offices and they're on different software and they're in different systems and different staffs. And some dentists want to use a $150,000 CAD CAM and some want to use an impression. So I don't. Just because you have roll-ups, what roll-ups to me are good for is liquidity in the marketplace. You have a bunch of dental offices that are worth $2, $3, $4, $5 million. No kid can come out of school and buy it, and a big company can come in and roll up all these different assets. They can trim costs. They can do your marketing better. They can do the business better. But they're still going to have the employee turnover issue, and the product at the end of the day is always going to be the dentist. I mean, I walk into your operatory, I have to believe you that I really need a cavity or a filling or a root canal, or that I can't, I need to do this. And then I'm going to allow you to lean me back and touch me and give me a shot and do it. It's such a complex behavior. I don't see how you stamp this out on some Henry Ford assembly line and everybody goes to McDentals for their dental office. I just don't believe that for a second. I've never seen evidence of that for 56 years.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a market for the independent dental office. I see successful offices all the time. And like you were talking about, it comes down to the dentist. And I can think of 3 dentists that literally you walk into their office or you meet them somewhere and they command a presence. They've got that attitude, they got that stature, they've got that confidence, and they run very successful teams. And, that can come with some coaching. But at the end of the day, whether you're Howard or John or any dentist, you got to want to do it. And the person you're going to have to rely on most is going to be yourself.
Exactly. And, the bottom line is, can you get yourself to be a Drew Brees, an Aaron Rodgers, a Matt Ryan with the Falcons, Ben Rothschild? Can you get yourself to do that? Can you get yourself to that by going to, Pankey and Spear and Ross Nash? And my favorite is John Coyce. I love that guy. Ross Nash on the East Coast. I mean, can you be Can you get yourself to that level? Can you be the next Drew Brees from the New Orleans Saints? Last and final
If
question. Last one, double, triple overtime with you. A lot of these young dentists say, I got $350,000 student loans. Do I need to buy a $150,000 CAD cam or a $130,000 laser or a $100,000 CBCT? Do you see a correlation? I mean, these kids can come out of dental school, buy three pieces of equipment, a CBCT, a laser, and a CAD cam, and they just double their student loan debt. And a lot of them feel like in order
oh
for
yeah.
them to be Batman and Robin, they need all this equipment. Do you believe in all that equipment for return on investment, or do you see it as high cost?
I see them buying it. I see them doing it. I see the banks leading the dentists into it. They get like 1 million minimum. They get 1.5 million, 100% financings, and if I was a dentist that had an office that was doing the numbers, I would absolutely buy it because you got the latest technology. It your staff is impressed that you're keeping up with the times. This is if you're doing the numbers, but if you're not doing the numbers, it's definitely going to be a problem. But you get to write it all off, and one of the biggest complaints I used to hear from dentists then and today is the amount of taxes they pay. Well, if you're doing the numbers and you want the latest in technologies and you can shelter that tax, I would definitely go for it. If you're not doing the numbers, be very cautious and any of that gray scale in between there for sure.
All right. Well, it was just an honor for you to. I mean, you're a busy man, and you could have spent that last hour in so many more productive ways. And to come on my show and talk to my homies today. Thank you, John Shaw of Maxill.com, Maxill.com. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and educating all my homies.